This is The Boys podcast from TV Podcast Industries. We're talking about The Boys Season 2, Episode 4, Nothing Like It in the World.
I know you hate kids and all, but I think that he's pretty...
No, I don't hate kids. Just not a very good role model, am I?
Welcome back, fellow boys and girls. This is The Boys podcast on TV Podcast Industries. We're discussing Season 2, Episode 4, Nothing Like It in the World. I'm one of your hosts, Derek.
Hello there, fellow boys and girls. I'm one of your other hosts, John.
And rounding out these trios like there is nothing in the world, I am your third and final podcast host, Chris.
Welcome back, boys. We're on to our weekly schedule. Once a week, every week now, an episode of The Boys and an episode of Lovecraft Country on TV Podcast Industries. Lots of stuff to talk about every week. And yeah, The Boys has gone to a weekly schedule now. Have you seen the disgruntled comments from the entitled fanboys? Have you?
Yeah. People on the internet are angry?
Oh,
no.
Yeah, it's amazing.
That's so new. I don't believe it.
Everyone's angry at the moment. Mm-hmm. Everyone.
It's amazing, isn't it? Like when I was a kid, you know, we had movies like Willy Wonka's Chocolate Factory, which taught you, you know, people that say, I want it now, get thrown into a basket and killed. Well, was Ruka Holt killed? I can't remember. I think she died in Willy Wonka's
Yeah, I think
Factory.
it was left unsaid, but she was punished.
She was punished, exactly. You know,
I want doesn't get, isn't it?
Exactly, yeah. Like the worst human character in Harry Potter is his cousin Dudley, who just constantly wants everything now. So, yeah, these are kind of the lessons that I would have learned as a kid. Why are people not learning those lessons these days? We'll get it. It's only 5 more episodes. We'll get it every week from now on, and then they'll be there forever to watch.
Absence makes the heart grow fonder.
Exactly. And chill pills. Okay, everyone relax, breathe in deeply, go to your Zen point, and just chill.
And once these 5 episodes are out, you're going to have to wait about 3 or 4 years till season 3 comes out at this rate.
Exactly. It'll never get filmed.
So why not enjoy only a weekly gap in between episodes? But we are here to talk about the 4th episode of this show. First off, I want to say a huge thank you to our Patreons who've been supporting us all throughout this year. Thanks so much to all of you who've been supporting us. Really, really good of you.
Yes, thank you so much. It's through your patronage, your support that we are able to keep the lights on, keep the hamsters that keep our podcast materials running. Hey. They are in wheels. We kept them fed. You're able to give them some food. Additionally, you're able to, through your patronage, I was able to get a brand new, spanky new, shiny mic that allows you to hear my voice so much better. And as the ever constant threat is upon you that I will give you a rendition of some song that will never get us a copyright strike because it's so badly out of tune. But it will sound so much better because of your patrons. So thank you so much from the bottom of my heart.
Absolutely.
Yeah, a big thanks to all our patrons for sure for your support. It's really good.
John sounded so depressed. Is it because they bought Chris a new mic, John? Is that what it is?
No.
No. I had to hear him so much better.
Sorry, that was just my sober tone, I suppose.
I see.
A big thanks for your support. It is really, really appreciated. And of course, we would like to extend a massive welcome aboard to our new patrons for this month. James Uren, Marianne Morris, and Angie Arhus. Thank you so much for joining us. It really is great to have your support.
Absolutely.
And of course, both with our patrons and non-patrons, the support for the podcast is really, really great and really, really appreciated. You can support us in so many ways, whether it is through Patreon at patreon.com/TV Podcast Industries, or head on over to the podcast catcher of your choice, whether it be a boy or a girl podcast catcher, and you can subscribe to us there, rate us, leave a review. Sharing the love is sharing the podcast. Sorry. Or should I say, sharing the podcast is sharing the love.
That's the one.
Indeed. So all your support is gratefully received and very much appreciated by us, the lads.
Absolutely, the lads of TV podcast industries. Yeah, a little bit of chart news. We're up to number 53 in the charts in the US for after shows. That's all TV after shows. We're just outside the top 50 after our first couple of episodes of The Boys released the weekend. So thanks so much for everybody for listening as well.
Yeah, definitely.
Yes, thank you so much, fellow industrialists. But do you know what would be an extra nice present? Help us break that top 50. Get us through there by sharing the podcast, listening, telling your friends. If they're enjoying The Boys, if you're enjoying The Boys, spread the word. It would be amazing. Thank you so much. Enough of charting, enough of Patreon, enough of sharing the love or sharing podcasts. Boys, we are here to talk about The Boys, Season 2, Episode 4. So, let's jump into it. First and foremost, Derek, do you want to tell us who gave us what?
Absolutely, yep. This episode was written by Mike Saltzman. Mike has been writing in comedy and dramas since back in the late 80s and early 90s. He wrote on shows like Wings and Murphy Brown. Now, I remember those because I'm quite old.
I'm old, but
Murphy
I have
Brown.
no recollection of those. I never watched them.
Amazing.
Weird.
Murphy Brown was some of the best kind of canned comedy, kind of sitcom of its day. It was the newsroom one.
It was
correct?
exactly, yeah.
Yeah.
I never saw Wings or Murphy Brown at all back in the 90s as a kid. Unfortunately, I think The Cosby Show, which I was watching, well, let's just leave that there, shall
Yeah,
we?
that was a very different history.
The
afterwards.
canned laughter is not playing anymore.
Certainly isn't. It certainly isn't. But yes, interesting that Michael Saltzman has been writing for that long in various shows over the years and is now working on a comedy drama, I guess you'd call that with The Boys. I guess we call it a violent comedy drama. Would that be about accurate?
I'd go comedic drama sounds better for an Emmy nomination.
Okay.
I don't think they'll do violence. The most violent blood and guts and animal decapitation in an Emmy award nominated show is...
Well, they'd win it, without a doubt.
Oh, yeah,
without
should.
any competition.
The amount of fake blood alone should top them over the charts.
Definitely. The episode was directed by Fred Toye. We talked about Fred Toye last season. He directed episode 4, season 1 as well. So it was the episode Female of the Species. Along with lots of other shows, he directed the excellent finale episode of The Watchmen, one of my favourite episodes of TV in the last couple of years. So great to have Fred back in this episode.
I've never heard of that show. Is there any place you could point me that would be a great way of watching it and then listening to someone almost discussing it?
I really can't remember at this
audio.
stage.
Yeah, it's available on HBO Max in the US, the TV show, and in the UK it's available on Sky Atlantic on their on-demand service. And we podcasted every episode and did a feedback episode every single week as well. So we did 18 episodes of our podcast last year, all about The Watchmen, one of my favourite shows.
It was brilliant. I need to watch it again because I have to say, it was great, but through COVID cabin fever and sort of the blurring of time and space, I do feel I need to watch it again to remember. Or maybe I'm just old.
Oh, we'll definitely watch it again, Don. Don't worry. Do you want to tell us what everybody gave us with your synopsis for the episode, John?
Sure. Following 2 tip-offs from Mallory, Billy Butcher tracks down Becca and tries to convince her to escape from her false life. And Mother's Milk and Hughie, accompanied by Starlight, head south to talk to a victim of the former 70s Supe Liberty. This victim indicates that Liberty is alive and well and currently housed at Vought Tower as Stormfront. Meanwhile, Homelander's twisted and very private pastime with a doppelgangered Madeline Stillwell sets him on a path to root out the weak and dishonest from the Seven. As he looks to reimpose his authority and personality in the wake of the Compound V scandal, he is unsure of tackling a dangerous and energized Stormfront as she capitalises from her success defeating the super-terrorist. Meanwhile, Black Noir has taken an interest in the whereabouts of Billy Butcher, and the Deep has taken an interest in marriage.
Yes, he has. That was an interesting old setup for that storyline for the episode.
He still didn't get who he wanted, though.
Well, yeah, I don't think you ever do if PR are involved in setting you up with your new partner. Definitely, it's really reminded me of When Harry Met Sally. There's a whole a trick in that movie where they go to couples who've been together for decades or been together for quite a long time, talking about how they met and all that kind of stuff. It just comes in after every kind of break in the movie. So that's what it felt like in here. I was expecting the big reveal of who it was that all these women had been married to as the kind of trick that they were going to do in the show. So quite a surprise that this was like, I guess at home dating. Would that be the way it's like?
It kind of really is. I was wondering what that was going to be about. Yeah. I almost thought it was going to be Liberty on the other side, because I didn't realize that Mother's Milk Hughie were heading down to go to a victim of Liberty. I thought they were going to try and find the former Supe Liberty. Mm-hmm. And so I kind of thought that this was possibly her behind camera in her new role as some kind of therapist.
Yeah.
So it was kind of a bit of a shock to see Carol and the Deep effectively vetting his next wife.
Well, exactly, yeah.
I took it a different way, and we'll jump into the points in a second, but I took it very much because of the storyline we were getting with About Love, be it through the multiple characters of the boys. I was expecting it to be some support group that a certain light-imbued Supe may have joined to discuss her heartbreak, her need, blah, blah, blah. I was expecting something along those lines.
That would have made sense as well.
Yeah, traditionally you have these kind of episodes that are tied in with holidays every year. You know, there's kind of the Christmas episode and the New Year's episode and the Halloween episode and stuff. There's no opposite holiday day to Valentine's Day, but this would be the perfect episode for opposite Valentine's Day. Like Broken Hearted Day.
Broken Hearted Day, yeah.
It occurs every year on September 10th. How about that? From next year onwards.
I much prefer it being like the day after Valentine's, February 15th. Where it's
that would be quite good,
you've got a broken heart now on Valentine's. Do you know what? Here's some discounted chocolates and
dead flowers and a card that says "screw you."
I like it.
Half-eaten chocolates, or no, just the chocolates with the nuts left. Like no one loves those ones. Ugh.
I don't know what you're talking about, Chris, at all. Everybody loves nuts and chocolate.
It's true, but let's just get on with the podcast because we're a bit in and this is where we need to go. So, boys and girls, ladies and gentlemen, if you're joining us only for episode 4, well, you've got 3 other ones to listen to. Great on you. We are changing things up on how we cover the boys. Each of us will choose the most interesting boys, protagonist moment, the 7, antagonist moment, and any other outstanding moment from the episode that we feel. So to kick things off, I will do an accent like the boys, like the French, and I will talk about the boys moment. I will go first. I will talk about breaking a pure wee Hughie's hat. Like a bad Frenchman.
Do you see what happens when Chris takes over the intro to this section? He's suddenly gone into a French accent and he's talking about Hughie's storyline for the episode. Like, do you see the irony, Chris? There was another storyline of the show that you could at least have chosen.
Okay. Oh no, the Scottish boy on Hughie. Look at him go. Oh, see, every time I go Scottish, I end up inadvertently going French. But anyway, I'm going to enough silliness. In all actual fact, I really just want to talk about the breaking of poor Hughie's heart. Mm-hmm. Like, we'll talk about the road trip and things and the actual other things that happen around the road trip. But it was so interesting to see that theme of love and relationships and couples kind of being teased with what we talked about, like the Deep's kind of pick of marriage. But the growth that we see of Starlight, Annie's, and Hughie's relationship outside of what's happening in the story. So, like, you see this mending of what we assumed was this mending of this kind of broken, or not broken, I was going to say shattered, but it's not, just kind of bent, relationship, which we thought was gone beyond repair. Broken beyond repair, yeah. Okay,
to be honest, that heart sounds like it really can't function anymore. If it's broken, shattered, bent, and just not working anymore.
No, so I just thought it was interesting because my assumption was that they were veering off from the comics, that this was a doomed relationship from the start, which is like, as this series continued, they were just going to pull them further and further apart. Mm-hmm. And you got some sense of that throughout the last few episodes, that like Annie was starting to feel dejected, particularly by Hughie's kind of lying. And then was it the last episode, as Hughie kind of straight out lies to her about what was going on. I believe it was the second episode. Mm-hmm. He straight out lies to her on the phone. She can tell that. To get to where Hughie professes his love to her in episode 3, to then her nearly having to kill him and them surviving. Mm-hmm. My assumption was it was going to be like, that was it. Like, that was the end. And then as this episode continues, we see why they were drawn to each other. We see that kind of, again, that mending as it continues, culminating in the I'll turn off the lights because I still want to see you, but only slightly dimmer scene, which was really nice. But not even that, it was just the actual section before where we see them talk about their broken lives as a contest beside the vending machine. And I was like, oh, this is great. We see the scene as they kind of are in the car and they're talking and they're smiling and they're singing. And I'm like, this is great. Like, this is what drives them forward. This new relationship, this reinvigoration to ending up in front of the subway where she just ends it. And we completely understand why. That constant fear she talks about, like the loaded gun, that all the aspects of that. They played with my heart in this. Because it is that you want Hughie to have love. You want Annie to have, like, to be together. They deserve each other. No, so I thought this was really interesting. Mm-hmm. Like, they basically built everything back up, and you expected by the end of this episode, things were, the new status quo being set was they're back together. And then they just dash it. And I was just like, that's ballsy.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think, I was surprised that they kind of reconnected actually in the car, but it's perfect environment for that to happen. And I kind of really liked it. Certainly given, even just the meeting up so soon after she had definitely been forced, but, you know, the eyes were glowing and she was in kind of Starlight mode, with, where she's acting on Homelander's instruction to kill Hughie, because he was ultimately saved by Billy Butcher, not by Starlight. And in the end, I was surprised that they came together so quickly, and then this road trip igniting everything. But I thought it was really, really good. And in the end, I actually thought that her kind of dropping everything and effectively calling it off, I just thought it was really, really good and absolutely made sense given what had happened to her in the elevator with Homelander. It was effectively her one last fling. And she is committing herself to Vought and being in the 7, and she doesn't want to be in that position where she has to lie or come across as being suspicious to Homelander ever again, because she knows what's going to happen. So I really liked how this worked out. And I mean, it was really sad. You know, Hughie was so happy with Annie being kind of back with him. And, you know, they have their tender moments together, whether it's at the vending machine in the room at the motel. And it was really, really good. So I suspect we will be probably hearing a lot of You're Only Human again in episode 5 from Hughie.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, there was some lovely moments between the two of them early on as well. I love that meeting they have in the park where Hughie finishes his conversation. He's about to run off to join this trip with MM down to North Carolina, but he stops and realizes that Annie's not leaving the park, and he kind of says to her, you know, are you just going to hang around here for a while? And then she breaks down in front of him and tells him what happened with Homelander, or tells him about everything that's going on, the pressure that she's been under. And it does feel really for the first time, because there's a lot of kind of hero worship in between Hughie and Starlight in the first season as to why they should be together. There's a little bit of that kind of excitement of being with Starlight, but this time you really see a relationship there. You see that there is a connection between the two of them as well. So I really like that scene. And then by the end of the episode, for it all to be kind of pulled away is a bit sad. But hey, I watched Fitzsimmons on Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. for 7 years, every single season being pulled apart for the whole season. So it's kind of a TV trope that the two characters you expect to be together will absolutely not be allowed to be together by the circumstances of the sci-fi show you're watching. So I'm used to it, but they'll probably be together by the end of the season, or maybe into season 3, and that's been confirmed.
Yeah, it will all depend on where we kind of get to by the end of the season. But well done pulling in AOS. Like, as
every time,
always,
man. Every time.
Like, every time you can get it in there. No,
absolutely.
Jokes aside, it would be interesting to see how this affects Hughie going forward. Because if anything, I wonder, will this turn him slowly into Butcher, where Butcher's was targeting zero in on Homelander because of the perceived destruction that Homelander brought on his love life, taking away Becca. So it would be interesting to see if Hughie now puts a target on Homelander for the perceived you're taking away Annie.
Maybe.
It could be interesting to see that.
I think he hates Homelander enough at the moment for all the other reasons as well. Lots of sex, lots of relationships, lots of other heartbreak going on in the episode. John, you want to take us on to another little bit of the boys' heartbreak for the episode?
Yes, another shattered, broken heart. This time Frenchie and the female. I just really like this interspersed throughout the episode, from the frustration where Frenchie is on an absolute drinking and drugs binge. Certainly after what happened with the events in the previous episode, you've got him really trying to connect with Kimiko. This frustration, and to be honest, that's where I really think, and why I really think he's drinking and taking the drugs. You get him attempting to kiss her. If words aren't going to work, then just go in with the old kissaroony.
Oh,
and unfortunately, this Frenchie got rejected by Kimiko, who really, I love that scene where she is under the table. She's absolutely intent on the TV with Stormfront again, capitalizing, as I said in the synopsis, on her victory over the super terrorist. And he comes in, he's been drinking, he's had the drugs, and goes in for the kiss and proper grip of the neck. And he knows when she has rejected him. Yeah. And of course, with that frustration, with that rejection, Frenchie ultimately heads back to Cherie, which we see for the first time since season 1, although I think
we saw her in the background, the first speaking role.
A little look at her last week, but here, a proper little reconnection between Frenchie and the former flame of his, Cherie.
It seems to confirm they have this kind of open relationship thing anyway. This is kind of like, definitely. It's not the love of his life, but it's someone that he'll go to. Friends with benefits,
exactly.
I love that Cherie points out to Frenchie, it doesn't matter really that female's nonverbal. She'd be able to tell you if she consented to you kissing her, right? Who did you think would feel good in this situation? She's lost her brother and you kiss her to make her feel better. Is that really a thing that was for her feeling better? The whole scene with Frenchie made me wonder, had we seen him taking drugs before? And I couldn't think of any moment in the first season where we actually saw him taking drugs, or it was even intimated that he was getting high on his own supply, really. We know that he is involved in a lot of sales of arms and that kind of stuff. We know the group that he's working with are selling drugs as well, so he definitely has access to it. But this episode definitely seemed to be, as you say, John, seemed to be him using drugs to kind of cope with everything that's been going on in the last episode, everything that happened in the last episode.
Yeah, and I think the great thing about the Cherie thing is that, it's ultimately, you know, what's drawn out of that is Frenchie wants to help, but he's just going about it the wrong way. And ultimately, the great thing about it is that he goes about it the right way, right at the end, because, you know, he's looking out for his friend, the person he has really strong feelings for, loves, in Kimiko, where he stops her from confronting Stormfront then at the rally. Mm-hmm. You know, at the 11th hour, pulls her back and says, this is not a fight you're going to win.
Yeah.
And he looks like he's gotten cleaned up. It looks like Cherie has managed to, you know, give him a little prune, get him in the shower, get new clothes on. And so I just like this. I like this movement of the relationship between Frenchie and the female throughout this episode, really. One where Frenchie is frustrated, leading to rejection, effectively going about things really badly with Kimiko, who's just lost her brother, Kenji, and ultimately ends up looking out for her at the Stormfront rally. So it was good to kind of get a bit more of a meatier thing for Frenchie, I think, in this episode.
Definitely.
So they are.
Yeah, no, I'm right with you. It shows his growth by the end. Like any of our listeners know, like, I hate tropes and I like growth. And that's in all things in life. Mm-hmm. But this does show that he's knocked back by this inability to have communication, discussion, a connection with her. But towards the end, he's understanding that he can make a slight difference with her.
Yeah.
Interestingly enough, we do get a quick answer to a small point about Stormfront in this scene. We were kind of wondering her power set, how she flew. Was it through the electricity? So we see that she does hover and then starts using her electricity, and I was like, oh, I was wrong. Mm-hmm. I was about to correct myself. Then we do see she cuts off the electricity and then flies.
Yes.
Right.
So we can see that they are two different power sets. So still one for me.
Yeah. She's definitely, seems pretty well souped up for sure.
Yeah.
I think the other thing as well with the Frenchie thing is we were talking about it on the podcast about, well, is it just a friendship kind of love and affection for Kimiko, or is it more?
Wondering whether it was brother and sister kind of relationship.
Yeah.
But
it kind of gotten lost a bit, and I think this nicely puts a bit more of a concrete feel around these two characters in terms of their own relationship together.
At least Frenchie's, definitely.
Certainly Frenchie's, yeah. But the female is in Avenger mode at the moment.
Absolutely.
She's absolutely focused on Stormfront after she broke the neck of her brother.
Absolutely. I really couldn't think of a worse time for Frenchie to make his move. If he's been waiting for the entirety of the first season to make his move, this couldn't have been done at a worse time, really. But again, as I say, the boys are all going down. All the relationships are going down the bad path in this episode. My protagonist moment is the same. It's also another one of the boys going down the wrong path. This is really the capper on the entirety of the first season and a half, really. Billy Butcher finally finds Becca, knows where she is now, finally tries to rekindle the relationship with her, and unfortunately, because Billy Butcher's an a-hole, as we all know, he may be the most fun character in the show to watch. He may give you all the great curses, but he's still an a-hole, and you see it here, and Becca's not willing to go back to him because of it. He gets all the tips from Mallory, as you mentioned in the synopsis, John. He gets all the details of where she is, and Mallory is trying to make up to Billy Butcher in some way for all the things she was involved in over the time that she was trying to protect the world from the Supe. She's trying to help Billy out, and even though he didn't bring back the Supe that he was supposed to bring back to get the information, she gives him the information to find his wife. He gets there, they rekindle their relationship, they also finally have sex with each other after all these years, for Billy waiting to meet her. I guess at this stage it's probably 10 years, 10 years, something like that. The kid looks about maybe 8 or 9, maybe.
Yeah, I think it's around that.
So it's been a long time. Billy has been on this vengeance streak, trying to kill Homelander for what he did to his wife, trying to kill all Supes in the world for what they've done and how horrific people they are. And what's put in front of him is Becca says effectively, I'll go with you as long as my son can come too. It is her son. She's been living with him for the entire time. He's an innocent child who's brought into this world and been used as a weapon effectively to try and keep Homelander in check, sort of, or maybe give something to keep her alive with. But Billy's not willing to take him because he's a Supe, just like his father. So this effectively puts an end to the relationship between Butcher and Becca. She's done now. She's out. So will we see the turn by the end of the season where Butcher realizes he's wrong and absolutely should take in her and this innocent child? Or will Ryan die by the end of the season and Billy try to go back to Becca and see, will she come with him now? Is that the kind of resolution that we want for our main character on the show? I don't know. What do you guys think of this situation between Becca and Butcher here?
For me, they're very much kind of, they're giving you, as you said, the resolution for season 1. The driving force is he now knows where she is. He found her. He got to see her again. They, as you said, got to rekindle and kind of reconnect. And it's that stubbornness that is driving him, that resolution that all Supes are a-holes, that is driving him, is now showing, to a degree, will show him by the end of this season, hopefully, or at least by this, that resolution, that being so resolute in that opinion, is going to cause him to lose the one thing he just got back. Mm-hmm. So I can see them kind of doing it a number of ways. Like you said, the death of Ryan, Ryan turning evil and joining Homelander by the end of the season, mm-hmm. that is also possible. I hope they don't go down this route, but there is obviously the potential for them to, and I don't think they will. They've never given me like one of those more well-known tropes where they'll kill off Becca. They'll kill her off because her storyline is done, and then that puts, and maybe the Ryan does it or something, and then that swings Butcher back to the vengeance. That's what's going to drive our main character, mm-hmm. vengeance for his lost love.
Yeah,
because we've already seen it. So I don't think Kripke and the rest will do that.
Well, that was as you say, that was the entire premise of the first season until we find out that Becca's alive. Yeah. So that was what we all thought was the trope that they were using in season 1. So you're right. I doubt they go and do that same trope again to push us into season 3. Now he's on the warpath. I did love Becca's response to Billy when he's saying, we'll just leave him behind. He's a multi-million-pound weapon, effectively. They'll take care of him. And she kind of says, well, that's what happened to Homelander. He was left behind. Yep. He was left on his own with these scientists taking care of him, and look what happened to him. We will just be creating another Homelander if we leave Ryan here, you know? Really liked that element of the argument between them.
Yeah, definitely. And actually, you got a sense from Becca speaking with Butcher that part of the reason why she took the deal with Vought to be in this compound after Homelander had raped her, and, you know, she's caring for the kid, the innocent party, and it's her son. Mm-hmm. But secondly as well, because of how she thought Billy would react to the news. Yeah. Like, she knows his temperament. Yeah. And she can see, and it's probably why she poses that question. Ryan is coming with us to test him, and he fails the test here with his outright stubbornness. Yeah. Because he seems to think that all Supes are the same as Homelander, even though Kimiko's in the boys, even though he knows about Starlight, that, you know, he will use them, absolutely. Yeah. But so
he doesn't like either Kimiko or Starlight being involved in his group at all. He feels like the purity of it being a group that isn't involved in Compound V is what is driving him along. Other people have brought them into the group. Exactly. And he's very unhappy with them.
But it's almost a suggestion that even Billy Butcher, not even a suggestion, it shows that Billy Butcher has lost his perspective and his focus in the same way that Homelander has. Completely, because he is just wrapping them all up in a bow as one. Yeah. And that's where Becca is totally against it. So it was really nice, this. I don't suspect that they will end. I think Butcher potentially has a redemptive arc here. I think
it's not that difficult either, is it either? All he has to say is, of course I'll accept your son and we'll take him in. It's effectively the idea of going out with a woman who has a child already and you take them on as your stepson. It's not that difficult, really.
Yeah.
Especially knowing how much he loves Becca and knowing how great she will have brought up the child. It's going to be a good one for their relationship. It'll be fine. But he just can't see past the fact that
it's got to be something really influential. And it's either because it's a big moment or it's going to be because someone like Mallory, who he doesn't, she cuts through his BS. Yeah. And if she lays it on the line, the truth of the matter, that actually really, it seems like their investigation initially within the CIA was all about Vought mishandling and abusing what they had there with the Supes. And you see it with Edgar talking about, well, within the cone of silence, we are happy to take 30%, 35% casualties. And that seems to me that the issue is they've got the weapons. And so they're also being treated like weapons, but not necessarily all Supes are like that. And of course, we don't necessarily see that quite in the same way. So, within this show. But Starlight, except for Starlight, she has that, she's part of Vought, but she doesn't want to kill. I mean, she says that to Homelander, so, in the lift. So, it'd be interesting to see how this develops, because as well, for me, the Black Noir thing was really strange, because I was expecting him to pop up at the compound. So all those scenes under the bridge, the love scene between Becca and Billy, I was expecting Black Noir to show up and like a huge sword fight to ensue.
That's right, because we saw him doing the thing in Vought head office where he was checking to see if there's any face recognition, trying to see if he could track Billy Butcher across the country. Yeah, I know that moment when you're kind of like, they're having some soft, tender moments in the back of the car. They're kind of having quiet moments and you see them sharing a cigarette and you're kind of going, someone's going to get their head lopped off with a sword here. So one of the two of them is gone at the end of this episode. Yeah.
It was kind of flashback to episode 1 of this season, thinking, is Becca suddenly going to get a katana through the back? And this is going to set Billy Butcher off even more. Now I'm not entirely sure what's happening there with Black Noir, and I'm just wondering whether it may be related to his corridor moment where he's sobbing after learning the news about Compound V, and whether he is in some ways trying to connect with Billy Butcher around information, intelligence, or whatever. I'm just not sure now, because I thought that was, whatever it was an interesting setup for Black Noir in this episode.
Interesting one. It'd be interesting if Black Noir turned in that way. I think he seems to be the one that we don't know that much about either, so it'd be interesting to see if that's the way. But for me, this moment between Butcher and Becca just felt like the biggest moment that we've seen for Butcher, really, because it does, as I say, cap his story right there. He has to go back and kind of repeat this story again. He has to go back to Becca again and kind of ask for forgiveness in the future to continue that story. But really right here, it feels like that's the end of it. That's kind of enough of the sad stories of the relationships of our boys. Let's get on to our 7, our antagonist moments for the episodes. Chris, you're going to take one of the big ones for the episode, one of the big reveals about the episode. We got the reveal of the racism of Stormfront last episode, but there's another bigger reveal maybe this episode.
Yeah. So very briefly, we talked about the question that Mallory had kind of put to Butcher about, have you heard about this Liberty character? And we were like, well, it's Budweiser ad, blah, blah, blah. And I was trying to rack my brains of, who could it be? Well, like, maybe it's kind of similar to Lamplighter. Maybe we were thinking maybe Homelander's mother. Maybe it's some form of that. They didn't wait long. Mm-hmm. So Mallory does kind of, while talking to Butcher, go through that the Liberty's name was all over Rayner's server, that she was talking to this, and there's an address and a person basically on the end of this address that should be able to provide some info on Liberty. And they were It was their job to go figure out what was going on. So we do get this interesting tidbit that, like, I'm just kind of, you've listened to our show to this point, you've already watched the episode. So yeah, Liberty is Stormfront. So what we see, or what we're perceiving to be, was basically Stormfront was in the early 40s, was the super heroine known as Liberty, and that she basically had killed this lady's brother because they were suspected that the involved in a crime, and full on goes crazy, goes full racist, and this girl sees it. And then you're expecting, it's like, oh, well, no, I was then expecting, oh, well, look, they'll say, like, she's still alive and point to someone in the crowd with Stormfront or on the Vought. It's like, nope, it's Stormfront. Yeah. That's that lady. So it's cool to see that they're gonna go that this aging V is helping with the aging process, that you kind of go slower. We see in Stormfront's conversation with Homelander, and actually in previous conversations, that she also kind of drops tidbits that can be portrayed or assumed that there's a double entendre that she is older than she looks.
Yeah, it's weird, isn't it? Because she called him Grandpa last episode, but I think that's just a joke. So she called Homelander Grandpa as if he's massively older than her, but clearly not. I think it was actually the 70s when that accident or that incident happened with Valerie's brother. Because she's herself is only in her 40s, and it was when she was a kid. So I think that's when Valerie's brother was killed by Liberty was in the 70s. I don't know whether it gives any detail as to how long she's been around before that. So I think we were talking about it last week as her maybe being part of the World War II effort when the Supes were around back then, but there's nothing in here, but we know that she's definitely been around since the 70s, and she's now Stormfront now. So just to make sure we're kind of clear on the timeline, but we'll definitely know more after this episode. Now that reveals there, we're definitely going to learn more about Liberty in future.
Yeah, absolutely.
What a fascinating reveal. So effectively she pulled herself out of the limelight and came back in for this, to join the Seven now, effectively back in episode 1. So I'm trying to get it in my head as well. Ashley said that she wasn't involved in Stormfront being added to the Seven. Whose choice was it that she went in there? Who made the call to bring her in? Homelander wasn't involved in it either.
It feels like it would be Edgar in that moment. Mm-hmm. I think.
But we don't know. Like, is it just that she effectively put herself on social media, walked in and went, I'm here right now, and they couldn't refuse it because the world knew that she just joined the Seven because she announced it herself?
It could be. And certainly that could have been persuasive, but we have that moment where Homelander goes up to the floor that Edgar is on to say, I have final say on who joins the Seven after he's just dispatched blind spots by destroying his eardrums. It's I suspect it's Edgar, but it could be the power of her social media presence and that persuasion. That's why Edgar went with her or something. Or as you say, maybe she did kind of insert herself into the Seven here because...
Do you know what I mean? It feels like Edgar's maybe thinking, well, Homelander must have done it because he told me he's going to be the one involved. And Ashley's going, well, I didn't do it. And Homelander's going, I didn't do it. And they're all kind of round in a circle, maybe, who is the one that actually brought her in. But it could be Edgar.
It could be. But it's interesting you say that she inserted herself because, there was her reaction to... we see her in front of baying crowds here. At the start, she's telling the crowd to be your own hero. And I thought she was continuing to hog the limelight, after the death of Kenji, after that, and kind of, being PR'd to death by Vought. But then she's really kind of going... Anti-Vought. And, they're not doing anything in the tower to stop these super terrorists, super villains. They're selling you these plastic dolls, throw them in the bin. And I think it was only until, the moment between Homelander and Stormfront where she she talks about, you have fans, I have soldiers. You don't need everyone to love you. You just need 5 guys on a laptop and people to follow you, 5 million people to follow you, you know, that are passionate, emotive, because emotion connects and anger sells. You've got to change with the times, you know, with a sly nod and that, you know, nice little reference to the Liberty element and rebrand. I can help you with all of that. Like, this is almost like a cuckoo in the nest, I feel, a bit, or a fox in the hen coop, whatever it may be. She is being a little parasitic here, because all this attention is for her own agenda, which is to spread divisiveness and anger, because that's all you need.
And
so, her backstory is going to be fascinating, and as well with all the similar kind of antics going on from people that should know better in power, then, you know, it's fairly timely as well.
Absolutely.
With all of this. But I thought that thing of Stormfront to Homelander, I just thought it was really, really good, and a great way of describing it from the writers of this episode. Yeah. That kind of process.
Yeah. Oh yeah, like this is 100% a call out. That conversation was 100% a call out to current political status around the world, in terms of the use of the internet, weaponizing it.
Well, yeah, but weaponizing certain people as well. It's not just you can weaponize people to go and buy the new iPhone, or you can weaponize people to go and join your cause to take down people of color that don't agree with your opinion, which is exactly what she's doing here. Yeah.
So, before we move on, and I'm going to move it on to John next, I want to call what my potential theory, Chris's crazy corner of theories. So, we got the background of Vought, and who Mr. Vought was. So, I'm going to call it that Liberty Stormfront was one of the first soups. In Germany, was created by Vought, was brought with Vought to America. She aged up, became Liberty, and so her aging process slowed. So then, by the time it was the 70s, she was a full-blown superhero. Now, she is a Nazi. We'll find out she's fully white supremacist, is a Nazi. Vought is no longer in charge, but she is still quite interconnected into Vought Industries. So she got herself pretty much through Edgar onto the Seven, and it is essentially that she is going to promote and become that crazy right-wing, kind of not anti-Vought. She's just everyone that is not white soup. You must bow before us.
Yeah, and
that's where they'll go.
It's an interesting dynamic, isn't it? Because you saying that, Chris, it's kind of like me thinking now, okay, yeah, maybe she has sort of deep ties back to, you know, the Vought family or something like that. And yet, I can't wait to see her relationship with Edgar, as well. And the fact then that Edgar has got the picture hanging in his office of Vought, where we got the backstory. It seems like he would have been appointed to that position. I'm like, as I say, the backstory of Stormfront and her connections, relationships, as to how she came back into Vought Industries and into the Seven. It will be fascinating.
Yeah, absolutely. Or else she's the one in control of the whole lot. She's the one that Edgar does report to, which is the other possible outcome for me. Yeah, really good theories, guys. Really good theories. John, do you want to give us your antagonist moment for the episode?
Yeah, mine is Homelander again. It's lion and its prey.
Yeah, like this also has some shocking moments in the episode.
Yeah, this was great. Homelander effectively is stalking the Seven, as it's currently formulated, just to root out those weak individuals. So, he goes after A-Train because he knows about the heart condition. With the dishonest, where he confronts Starlight in the lift, and effectively is going to kill her in the lift. Other than, you know, she has a great call where she hides her feeling and talks about hating Hughie because he broke her heart, almost destroyed everything. You know, it was really good. And she goes, am I lying now? Of course, because she says it with such sincerity because, you know, I think part of her is kind of slightly crushed by that. So, you know, there's enough truth there to show to Homelander. Almost, I suppose, taking a bit of a leaf out of at least what Stormfront had done in episode 2 in standing up, saying, you know, I believe in the rule of law. I believe in that process. I want to take him to the police, not just murder him.
Yeah.
Just because I do that doesn't mean I'm going against you. You know, so she does a great way to hide it and ultimately survive death at the hands of Homelander.
Absolutely.
And speaking in terms of dishonesty, then with Queen Maeve, where because he's had that sense from the phone call that Queen Maeve had with Elena, in the last episode, he effectively outs her on TV, that she's a lesbian with a girlfriend, effectively so that all her personal business is on show, and he can bring her back in. You know, he the dishonesty from Queen Maeve is a personal one, because certainly in season 1, you know, you see that they're very close, and Queen Maeve is technically, she's complicit in a lot of what Homelander has done really badly, like the airplane being sort of blown out of the sky with all the passengers.
Absolutely. And as we saw, you know, that whole conversation between herself and Elena, where she's saying, you know, the things that I've been made watch him do, and the things that he's made me be complicit in. Like, she's certainly questioning herself, but this is, a brutal moment where he outs her on television. You know, this it's idea.
Really not good.
When he goes through them all, you know, he's just so matter of fact about it. And it's almost like, where did he lose his PR training almost? Because he's there on TV kind of going, well, you know, we have loads of races in there. We've got A-Train, he's a black guy, and we've got Black Noir, he doesn't really identify with any race. So we've got all those covered too. It's like this really, it's like Homelander has started to lose it.
Yes.
You know, even on television, he's not able to keep himself in control, you know, and then
definitely.
It's like, you want a gay one? We've got a gay one. She's gay. It's like, she's a lesbian. She's got a partner. It's like, oh, just stop, Homelander.
Definitely. Know? Like he is just, you know, with Queen Maeve, it is about being sick of the lies that on a personal level, because she's afraid that he will go and kill Elena. So
what did you think about that moment with Maeve? She says to Homelander, "What have you done with Elena? Where have you taken her?" And he says, "She's safe. She's fine." I was trying to work out, does that mean he has or has not taken Elena? It sounded almost like he was saying, I know about it, and your worst fears are coming true here. I've taken her.
I just felt that he was saying to her that he hadn't done anything. I took it at face value a bit here, because I felt, you know, in terms of the treatment of Queen Maeve, treatment of Starlight are both horrific, and, you know, attempted murder or threatening murder and outing someone. But what I mean is that I think with Homelander, he says something, I'm just sick of the lies. I think with her, it's the personal side of things. He doesn't have that deeper personal connection with Starlight in the same way as Queen Maeve, I'm guessing.
Right.
I think her dishonesty is more traitorous. This one is maybe just doesn't push it into that bracket. So I didn't really kind of get the sense that he had taken her and killed her, but you never know.
No, I don't think he's killed her. I think it was just a question from her is, where have you taken her almost? The conversation felt as if Maeve was going, you've outed me on TV. That's really bad. You know all about my relationship. What have you done with her?
Yeah.
As in, not only have you outed me on TV, but you're now also going to try and keep me in control by kidnapping her or something.
And Queen Maeve continues to try and hide it, doesn't she? And that's why he says, I'm just sick of all the lies.
Yeah.
I think ultimately for his way of tackling Queen Maeve is, I now know that's threat enough.
Exactly.
And if I want to, I can go and find Elena at a drop of a hat.
Exactly. Yeah. There's no worry, even if he hasn't kidnapped Elena, he can still go and do something today.
Exactly.
Kind of thing. Yeah.
And I think then the final one is just the threat that is presented by Stormfront after last episode.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you see Homelander absolutely agitated by Stormfront in terms of what
completely.
she's done. That kill, that glory from that kill was mine, not yours. And even when he goes to confront Stormfront in Vought Tower, she works her way out of it, and you see he's uneasy in her presence. And given her powers of flight, electricity, you know, she's very, very well tooled, and would be a match for Homelander, I'm reckoning. So I really like that. You know, I like the threat of the eyes go and then recede, and she does understand the seriousness of where he's coming from, but she's able to work her way out of it, but in a way where she hasn't changed who she is, you know, in a sense, I felt. It's almost like she's saying, but why are you hung up like this? You know, and into that speech, she goes, all you need is 5 million, you know, loyal followers or soldiers.
Absolutely.
You don't need everyone
Fans.
to love you.
Yeah.
You know, but Homelander is a total narcissist. So, he's a total egomaniac.
Mm-hmm.
He's a
Which
preener.
we learn even later.
Yeah, exactly. So, I love this, through the episode as well. A bit like with the French one, you know, it's a through line coming from, an event that I'll mention in my outstanding moments, but really nicely done by Anthony Starr again. Every scene, I feel he's going to kill someone. He does, even smiling. There's a menace there, which is, I don't know how he's able to convey, this imminent threat all of the time. But if he was in a horror movie, I would probably have a shattered heart by the end of that horror movie, because I'd be constantly hiding behind the cushion wondering what's he going to do next.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like, he's excellent. I think he is phenomenal in this part as Homelander.
Yeah, I'm circling back to that couch scene with Maeve and Homelander, and I just want to give a massive hat tip to the writer's room, or whether it was specifically Michael who actually wrote this scene, but the pure fact, which kind of just pulling out we're not racist, I have a black friend kind of thing. Like, it's literally, it was that level, and it was that on the nose and calling out how stupid that sounds.
Yes, exactly.
It was just, but not in a, I don't know, I was going to say not in a comical way. It was comical, but not in a overtly kind of stupid way. It was still a good scene presented by great actors. It was just shining the light on such a stupid comment.
Yeah, it's exactly the kind of stupid thing someone would say who is racist and who doesn't think about anybody else around them at all. This is the moment when Homelander is going, well, I don't understand why anybody tells us that we're racist. Look at everything that everybody else has done. Not like he's actually done anything within his powers at all to change the situation at all. So, yeah, absolutely. For me, I'm just going to quickly talk about the Deeps moment in this episode, because as we mentioned earlier on, and just after we said the synopsis, really went through the synopsis, I loved the lineup of everything that's going on. I loved these non-love stories, really, from the ladies who are being presented to him as potential mates. We have the lady who's going, literally just as she gets to her wedding, her future husband tells her that it doesn't really matter how much they spend on the wedding because they're not having kids anyway, and that's it. She cancels the wedding, gets rid of everything because she wanted kids with this guy, and that was, final minute decision. That's it. She's out. Seems a little bit extreme, or seems like one of those things you may know before you get to your wedding day. Then we have the one I feel most sorry for, I'll be completely honest, the lady who had the boyfriend with the Ed Sheeran obsession, who made the two of them get Ed Sheeran tattoos on their arms and then broke up with her 2 weeks later. So she's now stuck with an Ed Sheeran tattoo that she absolutely hates, which I really like. I feel so sorry for, anybody who gets a face tattooed on their arm is always someone I feel kind of sorry for. That it's one of those things that will never age well as to, symbols and words and languages on your tattoos. Absolutely, they generally age quite well, but a face on your arm never going to go down too well. So I do feel sorry for her, but I guess she's not going to be stuck in a relationship with the Deep, being PR'd to death by Vought Industries. So that's not too bad. We also get the reveal of the one that Deep would have wanted, I suppose, who's basically willing to do anything sexually that he would be interested in. And of course, Deep's like, yeah, okay, yeah, that's my wife. But the one he does end up with is the lady who reveals that her perfect dream is an image that she's seen of two skeletons in a coffin who've died and are hugging each other for all eternity, and that's her perfect dream kind of relationship. And that's the woman that Vought are going to set the Deep up with for the future, because it has to be someone as wholesome as that who believes in being together forever and ever and ever.
Yeah.
I don't know whether it's intended, but in my head I was kind of going, how did those two skeletons die? Did one kill the other?
Is that not are these not the skeletons that are kind of fossilized from the volcano? I'm pretty sure that's the Pompeii ones, right?
I'm not entirely sure. I just felt from the conversations that each of the ladies were providing, particularly this one seemed a little bit more intense, and it felt like, we're going to die in each other's arms, even if I have to take you that way myself, and kind of almost, but that may be just me reading into it. But I just like the idea, and as I say, I love the framing device they had throughout the episode. So it really reminded me of When Harry Met Sally. So there you go.
Yeah, I absolutely love this. I get very massive vibes that this is what they're trying to do, a riff on Tom Cruise and his previous wife, Katie Holmes. That like they were always apparently they were chosen for each other by Scientology. This is very much, if you did not have if you had any illusions that this was not riffing on Scientology, well, they are.
Should have confirmed it there for you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Let's get on to our outstanding moments, guys. Chris, what's your outstanding moment, and a moment that we haven't talked about from the episode?
Very much a quick one, or two quick ones, which is Mother's Milk and his OCD.
Yes.
And his backstory. First on to the OCD. This is fantastic because I went back. They've been doing this since season 1.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Like, they've been playing this so well. Even the first scene where you see him, where he's adjusting the pens at his desk when Butcher's in there with him. Like, they were playing it off, and I always took it from that they were just going that he's meticulous and that was kind of thing. But being able to string it out to this point where they're like, no, he has full on OCD, and you see him tap and stir, and it all just clicks. It was masterstroke in character development. Like, just
see, I think I'd seen it so much, especially when you saw things like, him asking for a particular type of hand sanitizer, that kind of stuff. We knew he was really clean. Again, as you say, right back from episode 1, him adjusting the pens. It was always something that was there in the character. I just think this whole storyline is, hey, guy friends. Like Hughie's been hanging around with him for 6 months now, and seen him every single day. All it takes is like one car trip with Starlight. She goes, do we need to talk about MM's OCD? And he's like, what OCD? What are you talking about? I haven't noticed that at all. That just feels like guy friends. It feels like that kind of thing where all your mates could spend their entire lives with you and not notice that you have a pretty serious condition, really, when it comes down to it for MM. Like she describes it as, have you not noticed that before he turns into a new lane, he has to tap the steering wheel 3 times and then put on his indicator. Before he drinks a cup of coffee, he has to tap the cup 3 times. Like, he does multiple OCD things before he does anything, and Hughie's never noticed any of them.
The wipes, even the aloe vera, because he's got to sanitize his hands, like we met, kind of caught out in one of the episodes. I think it was episode 1 of this season. Yeah, I really liked this call out, actually, of the OCD of Mother's Milk, for sure.
Yeah, no. As someone who has small amounts of this, I just loved it. I thought it was fantastic, a great portrayal of how they do it, not making him out to be a complete psycho crazy,
Exactly.
As they do in some more tropey TV shows. Moving on to his backstory, this was a great way to kind of give him a bit more depth without kind of throwing it in your face, by giving him that the ability to tell parts of his story, of why he's against Vought, while staying true to what was going on, and then versus a kind of Basil exposition scene where it's like he sits down with Hughie and tells the story of why he hates Vought and what, etc. We didn't get that. We got it as it was a natural progression of him and Starlight talking about his dad, or their fathers, and it was a nice touching moment. We know he's dead. And then getting the scene where they're about to discuss and trying to show why they're against Vought and the downtrodden. And we do get this story that, for reasons his father was suing Vought. Vought basically attacked him with an army of lawyers. His father never gave up. Basically, his father had OCD. We see that he was constantly at the typewriter. He was there constantly fighting this battle for all the years until one day they just didn't hear the typewriter go anymore.
Yes, there's another magic trick from Vought. They made his father disappear, it seems. Yeah.
So this was great. We get the background. We're going to probably find out more. And yeah, I'm happy to. In Chris's Corner later, I'll quickly discuss some of the top points about his comic backstory. And it's quite similar. Like, it's really, really good. We did discuss it back in season 1 when we were discussing season 1, but I'll just kind of rehash for anyone who's just joined us for season 2.
Yeah, absolutely. I must say, I love the connection between MM and Starlight as well. I felt that there was a real moment where you go, well, actually, you can see why these two would get along. You know, they're connecting their past with each other. You know, it's a really good conversation. It's really well written between the two of them.
It felt true.
Exactly.
Like, it didn't feel forced. It didn't feel like, we need to quickly get backstory. Here you go.
Yeah.
Like, it was just a very fluid conversation.
Yeah, and also feels if we are eventually ever going to get Starlight as a true member of the boys in the future, you can now see there's a way in here. She's had a relationship with Hughie. If that ever happens again, that's fine. But he really trusts her anyway. Looks like he would really trust Starlight now after having this conversation and connecting properly with her. So all she needs to do is convince Frenchie, the female, and Butcher to try and let her into
Absolutely.
the group.
Butcher?
Maybe not Butcher. Maybe Butcher might have to leave the group before she joins. Is that it on MM and Mother's Milk?
That's really it. It was a quick, outstanding moment for me.
Excellent. John, I think you're taking the creepiest moment from the episode as your outstanding moment.
Yeah, a bit of Homelander on Homelander action. He is so into himself that he only needs himself. That includes his doppelganger, who is back this season to recreate Homelander in his own perfect image and to pleasure him how he sees fit. Yes, this was never going to end well for Doppelganger. And I love how Doppelganger, not only does he look like the person who's trying to portray, but speaks with such authority in their tongue, in the sense that I could imagine Homelander speaking like that. You knew it wasn't going to end up well here. And yeah, he is the neck. There's a lot of neck squeezing, twisting, just general garroting going on here.
It's a weak point of the human body.
Yeah. And it was just interesting because this safe space that Homelander had created seems out in the woods, log cabin, far away from everywhere. I presume Doppelganger is that's his retirement plan, that he was going to just be there, be kind of, in quotes, looked after, or he's being held hostage.
I think might be hostage, yeah.
And we see right at the start Homelander with Madeline Stillwell. Here, I actually thought it was a dream sequence, and then
I thought the pressure could have been getting to him. I thought that was the way they were going to play it in this episode. That Homelander's been under so much stress and strain that he's suddenly seeing Madeline Stillwell in the room. The reveal that it was Doppelganger was so good.
It was so good.
Am I right in saying that we only saw him in one episode last season when Madeline Stillwell used him to bribe a senator or something like that? She had him be a really attractive woman, take him up to the room, translate back into Doppelganger and have the photographs to bribe this guy. I think that was the only time we saw him, maybe one more time. But I like bringing back the minor character who only appeared twice in the first season for this massive moment in here, this massive reveal of Madeline Stillwell and why she could possibly be back. You know, it was really cool.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like this house is almost like Homelander's
retreat,
library of the mind, because
Fortress of Solitude.
Fortress of Solitude. Okay, exactly. Oh wow, I didn't get that reference. It is, but it's a creepy Fortress of Solitude where people like Madeline Stillwell suddenly turn into an overweight doppelganger. I love that where he just gets up and says, "Change the F back." But you know, this is where he's talking it out with himself, or with Madeline, but with himself as well. And I thought this was really good, to be honest. And as I say, I thought it was a dream sequence to begin with. And then I was thinking it had gone on for so long, or like you say, stress induced, almost hallucinatory. And then I actually thought, is Stillwell alive? Because it had gone on for so long. And then what I was not expecting was Doppelganger to pop out from Stillwell, and just that image of Homelander reclined on his sexy thighs with those orbs sort of resting down close to his face, which he enjoyed from Stillwell. And then
may not be enjoying as much from Doppelganger.
Not anymore. Well, he's lost that ability now, unless there's a few other Doppelganger superheroes around that he can exploit. But again, over the course of this episode, the Homelander, where he turns into himself, it is that moment of realization. He's gone through the seven to try and get rid of them. And he faces himself and realizes it is only him that he needs. He feels confident, strong enough to be that it's just him. And to the point where he doesn't even need himself, or, through his doppelganger, his kind of the image of him. And maybe Stormfront has, kind of brought that in as well. It's this God complex reasserting itself. And this is almost that final stage where I'm God. I don't need anyone else. I don't need the seven. If they all go, or if they're all killed, or if I all kill them, fine. Yeah. The seven is me. So this was really great, and it was just a great moment with the doppelganger.
Absolutely. I just love that line from Doppelganger when he effectively knows he's pleading for his life, and he kind of goes, you can sleep with yourself and it's not even gay, he's trying to give him every option here to save himself. I can transfer into anybody at all that you could possibly want. I know you, maybe yourself, maybe you want that, it wasn't going to go very well for Doppelganger from that point, definitely. That's kind of it from the Homelander side, right, John?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's there's a lot going on in this episode, but you've I think gone through most of his storyline. I'm just going to take a quick one. My outstanding moment from the episode, you kind of mentioned it earlier on, but just the singing in the car on the way down on this road trip with MM. I just think it's one of the funniest scenes that we've seen in the episode, where Hughie and Starlight connect over both knowing the words to, I think it starts in the third verse of We Didn't Start the Fire, when the two of them start singing every word back and forth to each other. You know what? Most people get the first 3 or 4 lines of that song before they start kind of miming along with what they think it could be. Exactly. Do their kind of something fire. Yeah. Somewhere like that. So if you find another human being on the planet that can sing along to every word of that kind of song with you, you know you found the right person. But I just thought it was great. I love the reaction from MM in the front of the car, kind of going, "This is not a road trip. We are on a mission here. We're not here to just see your little date together." You know, shuts off the radio, and that's kind of the end of the conversation. But I really liked it. I thought there was a really nice connection between them. Just to mention, because for some reason we didn't mention it back in episode 1, we have had a new Billy Joel song every episode. We did mention this is in reference to Hughie's assertion that he doesn't really like any challenging music. He just kind of likes, your standard James Taylor and Billy Joel kind of songs. This is what he's into. It's the type of music and the only type of music he's into. Nothing wrong with either of those two people as artists, but broaden your range a little bit, Hughie. Yeah. So you kind of get the feeling that part of the reason why he's listening to You're Only Human on his phone every day is because there's so much French rap going on in the hideout that they're in, which really wouldn't be something that Hughie would be into. But back in episode 1, we heard Pressure by Billy Joel. In episode 2, we heard, as I said, Only Human. In episode 2 and 3, it was played at both times. And there was a little touch of Piano Man as well, one of Billy Joel's most famous songs, at the start of episode 3 as well. So in episode 4, it's We Didn't Start the Fire. So we will apparently hear more throughout the rest of the season.
So what are you expecting for episode 5 then?
See, I'm wondering now, maybe with Hughie's broken heart, maybe he'll turn to somebody else. So that might have been the last Billy Joel song we'll hear, but we may hear more for the rest of the season. Some other big tunes. And as I said, I was half expecting when I heard Billy Joel music was going to be involved that we would have a moment where Hughie looks at Starlight and Uptown Girl's playing, and I hope they don't do that, because that's my least favourite of the hundreds and hundreds of Billy Joel songs out there. So, and it's the most overplayed. So hopefully we don't get Uptown Girl. Anything else, 100% I'm happy know with.
That's going to happen.
I'm happy with that. He even has a Vietnam song if they want to go back and do some replays of Liberty in the War. We could use so many songs. So I think the rights were sold to Westlife after their awful version of that song years ago. So hopefully we won't hear any other versions of Uptown Girl. Anyway, quick call out just on that, as we hadn't called it out before. Any notes for the episode before we got on to Chris's Corner?
Very quick one. We wrongly assumed that in episode 2, when we heard about Kimiko's village being destroyed when her brother tells the story, that it was Homelander who did it. But according to Mon Cherie, in this episode, it was Lamplighter.
Right, yeah.
She said Lamplighter burning down the village. So again, another name check for Lamplighter, who we know is coming in season 3, played by Sean Astin. So it'll be interesting to see now how deeper they go in this. That's like kind of why is that why Lamplighter's no longer there? Maybe Homelander killed Lamplighter because Lamplighter tried to save them. We're learning more and more about this village being destroyed.
Right. I had not heard that casting at all. I had not heard we're going to get Lamplighter at all. That's mad. All I knew was that he was gone at the start of the first season. That was it. He was the person that had been removed from the 7, that Starlight took his place, effectively. That was it. I didn't know we were going to be getting him coming back. That's really interesting. Excellent.
I'm pretty sure I heard that, but I could be 100%.
No, excellent. Thanks, Chris. That's
good stuff.
An interesting one. John, anything?
Yeah, just 2 notes for me. I did kind of forget to mention Shockwave is seen entering the Vought building to replace A-Train.
Yes.
And the great little moment with A-Train and Ashy, where she's like, "Oh, nothing to worry about," and then Homelander just says, "He's replacing you. He's basically coming in to kind of sign the contract." Mm-hmm. So we see Shockwave. That was his A-Train's kind of nemesis in season 1, because why he kept taking a lot of the Compound V to make sure he was kept beating Shockwave.
Yeah, because he had the embarrassing title of second fastest man in the world.
Yes.
Shockwave. So, now he's the fastest man in the world because obviously A-Train has the heart problems. So,
and my only other note is on our long drive down south to Raleigh in North Carolina, we do see Homelander mural on the side of a barn where his cape is the Confederate flag and not the stars and stripes.
I did notice that. Yeah,
Yes.
that was quite an interesting touch, wasn't it?
That was fairly interesting.
It would be remiss of me after living in Carolina for 2 years and my family all still live in Carolina not to correct you and tell you it's Raleigh, John. Not like the bicycle that we have over here.
Okay, not Raleigh.
Raleigh. Yeah. So,
Spelt the same, but...
Yeah, exactly. Different pronunciation.
Yeah.
But that's really interesting that they do that they'd have a moment with the Confederate flag, because it feels like, maybe that's something the Stormfront would be absolutely approve of if that was what the choice for her cape would be, I suppose. Just quickly, I absolutely should have called out that line with Homelander firing HRN, because I love it ends with, "We'll still be friends, I'll like you forever," etc.
Exactly.
Great Homelander moment when he's just going, etc., whatever. None of this means anything, you're out. That's it. Great moment. Finally, for me, just the episode title, Nothing Like It in the World, is a song by Mr. Big, and it is a hairband from the 80s that Mr. Big, I think you probably remember one song of theirs. It's awful. Once again, exactly the type of music that would fit within Hughie's collection.
I'm really glad I can't remember that tune for
terrible.
sure.
Terrible.
But Chris, your corner awaits, sir.
It is, boys and girls, gather round and welcome to the Comic Book Corner, or also affectionately known as Chris's Corner, where we deep dive into some of the background, the history of the comic books and how it relates to this. I want to jump into Mother's Milk just based on the absolute kind of drop of knowledge that we learn about Mother's Milk in this. Back in episode 3 of season 1, we did a quick Chris's Corner on this. So I'm going to, just in case you don't remember, I'm just going to kind of rehash some of that. But essentially, backstory, Mother's Milk is very similar in this show as he is in the comic books. He first appears in issue 2 of that. While they don't directly call out the OCD in the comic books, he's kind of always described as this patient, methodical man. And that came from his father, who basically kind of drilled into him to check every possible angle and every means of attack. And they make kind of light of this kind of methodical nature, because he always gets annoyed when people don't use drink coasters under their glasses, and it kind of becomes this big thing.
I recognize that trait.
Oh yeah, no, never seen that one before. Apparently, his moniker of Mother's Milk comes from him being the purest, the most good-hearted member of the team. And basically he did work with Mallory and the boys back in the day on this. We do get his backstory and the history of Mother's Milk in issue 35. Right. And it does bring up his father's backstory about how his father worked to sue Vought over this. And it does give a reason. I don't know if I want to go into the exact reason right now. It is really, really good. Okay. And it will be interesting to see how they bring this in. If you have read volume 1 and volume 2 of the compendiums and stuff like that, it's like issue 17, some of the stuff they hinted in issue 17 comes out in issue 35. But it is really nice to see how they are staying true to the comics with this, because it is something that ties deep to what his character is. So hopefully, fingers crossed, they stay quite close.
Excellent. Yeah, it sounds like if we had the reveal in this episode that he's so connected to his father, we'll probably hear a bit further on that story in a future episode. Excellent. Anything else in Chris's Corner, Chris?
No, but again, calling it out. If anyone has any questions, let us know. Oh, sorry, I should have said his real name in the comic books is Marvin Milk.
Very good. I think we saw that at the start of the season on screen, didn't we? We saw Marvin Milk being wanted. So the only person that wasn't named was Frenchie. It was the only unknown person. You're right. Yeah. So it is the same as the comic. Excellent.
Yes.
Good stuff. I think overall we seem to have enjoyed the episode. John, do you have a rating for this episode?
I do. Again, another episode I really, really enjoyed. I'm going to give it 5 doppelgangers out of 5. I liked all the through lines on this, from the the love gained and loved lost, with Hughie and with Starlight, Frenchie and the female. Although he does he claws back their friendship anyway after the mistimed kiss.
At least keeps her alive, yeah.
And keeps her alive as well to fight another day.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, with Billy Butcher and Becca as well, Homelander and all his team, there's a lot of love lost gone on there. And I like how he goes round all of them. And yes, the little mystery around Stormfront, I think it's going to be epic, her backstory.
Yeah.
I really hope I'm not building it up in my mind, but it just sounds fascinating how she got where she is. And I can't wait to then see her ripped down by the female, hopefully. But I think there may be a few other people that want to join in on that fight, at least Homelander at the moment. But
Definitely.
Who knows? Maybe he's taking a chapter out of her book. So I really, really enjoyed this episode. Thought it was properly top notch. And so, yeah, 5 doppelgangers out of 5.
Excellent. Yeah, halfway through the season. Excellent episode overall. Chris, anything else to add?
Not really. As you said, halfway through the season, this has just gone strength to strength to strength. I'm just dying to get into episode 5 to really see how they're going to pull this all together.
Excellent. Just 1 week to wait for that one. Next episode out next week. John, it's time to go to the pub and give us your boys' pub quiz question for the week.
Yeah, welcome back to the pub quiz, fellow boys and girls and fellow pub quizzers. This is episode 4, and this is question 4. What are the 3 worst candy bars in the history of candy, according to Hughie? Yes. Send in your answers to feedback at tvpodcastindustries.com. You can send them in one at a time. Just make sure in the subject line that you indicate what question the answer is for. So please keep on sending those in so that the winner, the one with the largest number of points, will be crowned the winner. And if we have a tie-off, then of course it will be names in a hat. Each question is 1 point unless stated otherwise. So yes, please keep on bringing in those answers to the pub quiz questions, fellow boys and girls.
And we did promise, and I'm going to have to apologize once again to our wonderful boys and girls. We did promise that we would have an idea of what the goodies would be for our boys season 2 pub quiz competition. We do not have them yet. That is purely because we completely overloaded ourselves with podcasts over the last week and didn't get a chance to look them up. We will have them for episode 5 going into the other half of the season. We will have our goodies available for the boys pub quiz. Thanks so much for everybody that's entering the pub quiz. It's really good fun to have to see your answers so far.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for entering. And I can assure you it will not be the 3 worst candy bars ever that are in the prize.
Excellent. Yeah, don't do that. Nobody likes setting terrible candy bars to them.
Yeah.
We have got some feedback in for episode 3 that we haven't discussed as of yet. Thanks so much for everybody who's been sending in their feedback to us. Email us to feedback@tvpodcastindustries.com with any thoughts you have on the series as a whole, or any episodes that you've watched, or the podcast itself. We'd love to hear from you if you have any thoughts about the podcast. First up, we got an email in from Jimmy Urin, who says, I am so excited to have this show back with a fun season opener. I just can't believe it has been a year since the last series, and given how much has changed since, it is almost comforting to be back with the boys again. That said, I have to say that the way this show makes you laugh out loud while watching decapitations, exploding heads, or voluntarily severed limbs does make me worry that lockdown might have done something more to me. The first podcast was excellent, and I especially liked Derek's catch with the Lebowski reference, and I'm impressed you managed to find a soundbite to open with without having to censor the language. That's becoming an eternal struggle, Jimmy. Thanks so much. Jimmy says, just a few other thoughts that you might not have had time to include. The Translucent Funeral was a great opener, and I agree on the awful brilliance of the song. thought we hardly knew you. It seems we can't see through you. as a quote from the lines there. I also noticed in the live broadcast that the new subtitles updated just before Starlight spoke, presumably deliberate to show how scripted their grief was, and a very nice touch for the episode. Very good. Jessica Hetch, who plays Carol, was also Susan in Friends, married to a character named Carol, as well as in Breaking Bad with the ever-amazing Giancarlo Esposito, who has that fantastic, confident menace that should make him a perfect foil for Homelander this season. Oh, that's really interesting. Also, what is the Fresca drink is about? Is it some kind of drug, or is it just product placement? It makes me think of Slurm from Futurama.
Nice catch.
Yeah, lots of Fresca over and over again in the Deep's place. Jimmy continues, not quite enough of Butcher to make it a perfect season opener for me, but he did get to have a great intro, and I guess was held back for a reason, so we should get plenty of opportunity for the rest of the season as well to find out what went on after the last finale. Anyway, enough for now. On to the next episode. Go on, Jimbo. You might as well fill up on the boys as we have them. Thanks so much for your feedback.
Yes, thank you so much, Jimbo. Appreciate it as always. Over on Facebook, Angie Aris had this to say: wickedly good fun in that first episode. I finally watched it last night. The bit where Homelander drinks some of Madeline's breast milk out of the freezer was super creepy. I like seeing more of Giancarlo Esposito as Miss Edgar. He's such an ominous presence. Look like they might have expanded the role for this season. Yep, Giancarlo Esposito just... I'm not a Breaking Bad guy. I know he was huge in that. I know him for a few other roles. But every time he's a scene eater, and not in a bad way. He's just this fantastic presence that putting him in a room, it's going to be, even him in the role, it's just, it's going to be a fantastic take and an ominous presence, as you said.
Absolutely, yeah. Great to see him. He is that villainous presence in a lot of shows at the moment as well.
Yeah, no, thanks so much, Angie, for the feedback, and of course as well to Jimbo. Salimicus says, well, they said they were raising the bar this year, and they weren't lying. Homelander is a despicable POS, but that man can deliver a rousing speech. Seeing Chris's prediction of Homelander's son manifesting his powers didn't take long, nor did Stormfront showing her evil, hateful side. One thing I don't quite get is the rest of the team going along with Billy, handing the female's brother over to the feds, or the brother helping save Hughie from Homelander. Did they have a last-minute plan to somehow get Becca and Mother's Milk's family without actually handing him over? Yes, obviously I am officially off of Team Stormfront, though I do find her and the dynamic she brings to the show very interesting. During the virtual panel a couple of months ago, Aya Cash said she was worse than Homelander, so I'm really interested in where they go with her. Maybe she will go full-on Nazi. She doesn't seem to mind working for Edgar, but she could just be going along to get along. I do thought that was Cherie in episode 201. IMDb confirms this. I wonder where they'll go with her. I always felt bad for her in season 1. She blew up her apartment for Frenchie, only to be seemingly cast aside at the drop of a hat. Yeah, thanks, Salim, for that. I think Stormfront has certainly gotten a lot worse. She's certainly not putting on the old flag at the moment, but she's not putting the armband on her arm, the Nazi armband just yet, but certainly I could see her going there. Yeah. And
pretty likely, yeah.
Yeah, I'm officially off Team Stormfront as well, I think, to be honest. I think, she's not a nice lady.
And yeah, she probably is worse than Homelander. We've kind of had a quick chat about that last episode, didn't we? Wondering whether she's worse because of her particular proclivity for the people that she murders, being definitely worse than Homelander's. And a question from Salim as well. There is that moment when Billy is calling Mallory to tell her that he has the assassin or the terrorist on board the ship, and Frenchie overhears it. I think it sounds like, or it seems like, Billy's told the rest of them that he's just going to get protective custody in there for for her brother. It doesn't seem like there's anything bad's going to happen to her, but Billy then kind of turns and says, if the female Kimiko steps in the way, he'll take her out. And then Frenchie has an issue with what's going on. But it seems like everybody's gone along with it because Billy has arranged for something okay to happen to Kenji. But it turns out that that's not what actually was going to happen. I think it's something like that. So I think that's how he's convinced them all to be on his side and allow for Kenji to be turned over.
Yeah, essentially he's lying to the team. And that was the problem that we saw in season 1. He keeps he keeps the deals he makes with Mallory, with Raynor, with everyone to be fit his own benefit while telling them something.
Exactly. Finally, Jamie Alexander says, "Welp, Stormfront's evil. Hughie sure does spend a lot of time covered in blood and goo. Poor Hughie." That's like a beautiful haiku, really, about poor Hughie's experience.
Yeah, it really is. Yeah. It is poor Hughie. Yeah.
I highly recommend going over to Jack Quaid's Twitter profile and following him there. He has some amazing photos of the makeup he had to go through for playing wee Hughie, especially when he was covered in blood. We also got some amazing scenes where behind the scenes photos of where they were inside poor Beth.
Absolutely, yeah. Some awful experiences, I'm sure, for all the actors on this show. As we said, he was very happy that everybody else is getting covered in blood.
Well, he did, didn't he? Yeah, that was pretty good, because he was the main blood-splattered victim in the last season.
Throughout season 1, yeah. Absolutely. Excellent. Thanks so much to everybody for your feedback. Please keep sending it in to feedback@tvpodcastindustries.com. We'll be back next week with our chat about The Boys, Season 2, Episode 5. We gotta go now. That's the name of the episode, but we also got to go now. Thanks so much for joining us. Bye.
Yes, thank you so much. We got to go now. He's telling us we got to go.
Yeah, fellow boys and girls, we got to go. But remember, keep watching, keep listening, and of course, after this episode, keep on loving.
Aww.
And we'll be back next week.
Bye.
Bye.